Mr. Griffith, good morning. He's a man who doesn't sleep, you know.
That's a luxury. Good morning.
Mr. Griffith, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, and Happy New Year. It's the first time that we're speaking for the year. And let me just say that, Mr. Griffith, every time that we would have called on you in past years to speak with us, even while you were National Security Minister, a police commissioner, you always acceded to our requests. So we appreciate that and thank you very much. Yeah? All right.
Thank you. But it is important that if you want to be in public life, there's just one word: you need to make yourself accessible. If you don't make yourself accessible, people will have their opinion about you. The wrong messages will be passed. So you always say you can't be half pregnant. You can't expect to be in public office and try to hide from the media.
Yeah. Mr. Griffith, let's get into the matters at hand for this morning. So the SOE up to Saturday has netted 126 people, 17 firearms, and over 675 rounds of ammunition. Now, this is according to the police service, right? But we only have a few murders so far this year, only about 3. Your analysis of this?
Well, again, I have always stated that a state of emergency is not a crime-fighting tool. When I was National Security Advisor, I was now getting onto Space Mountain. The Prime Minister called me in 2011. She said, we want to call it SOE. I said, why? Because there have been 9 murders in 5 days or whatever. I said, SOE is not a crime-fighting tool. There's going to be a repercussion. Why? Because when you call a state of emergency, it affects the economy. It can increase the cost of goods and services. Eventually, if you go into a curfew, it's going to close businesses. It will cause unemployment. And all of that is a byproduct to increased crime. So a state of emergency is not a crime-fighting tool. But I said then, it's the same thing I'm stating now. Everything that is being done right now could be done without a state of emergency. For example, intensified patrols, intensified roadblocks, bringing in the army, all of that could be done without a SOE. What is required is if they adhered to the recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry into the attempted coup, the use of a National Operations Center, having a national security alert state moving from green to amber to red to black, intensifying the national security apparatus based on the threats of the country. Those are the things that could be done. So everything that is being done now, it meant previously it was not being done based on either laziness or you are taking advantage of the extra authority without increased intelligence to provide evidence. And the point I'm stating is this is what happened in 2011. The boast is that we're just locking up 500 persons and then bam, you got the kick in. You arrested them because you did not have enough evidence, but it allowed you to do that indefinitely because it was a SOE. The government has now put a get out of jail free card by putting up clause 6, but that's not going to change the fact of the court of public opinion acknowledging that yet again you're arresting people without evidence. So arresting people is not something to show. Look, we are doing well. It is just holding persons indefinitely. So that's the only thing that an SOE does that you will not get without the SOE. Arresting persons indefinitely and kicking down doors without a warrant. The only reason you need to do that is because of lack of intelligence, which is why we needed that National Operations Center to coordinate the intelligence of the different agencies working together. So the jury is still out, but as I said, everything that could be done now could be done prior to SOE.
Yeah. But there has been an argument this time around that there is going to be greater management of the SOE, because I don't have to tell you, you do know that in the past, and some may view SOEs as really some sort of vicious revolving door, in that, as you have alluded to the fact, a number of people would be picked up, a number of people would be questioned and so on, and then we see them leave the precincts of police stations in the days after, and then sometimes you do see some persons taking legal action against the state. So again, the argument has been this time, well, here's what. There's going to be greater management of it. Are you optimistic about that?
Well, actually, the number of persons arrested within the first week of this SOE has actually been more than the one in 2011 when 500 persons were arrested over the 3-month period on. So it is sure that we are seeing almost identical, the same thing. I would strongly recommend that the Office of the Attorney General have some degree of involvement in the arresting procedure. Because if we allow the police to do exactly what Stephen Williams did in 2011, there's going to be a price to pay. As much as you have that clause 6, the attorneys of these individuals are going to push based on constitutional rights, and they'll challenge that court order to say that you can't break into my door, destroy items, arrest me indefinitely, and say that I have no redress. Having said that, the value of the SOE has been, obviously, there's been a reduction in murders. How long it will last, we don't know. But as I said, exactly what is being done in the SOE could be done without the state of emergency. We have 90% of our police officers in buildings. It is back to the old-time 20th century policing. This is what Dwayne Gibbs was doing until Kamala Prasad-Bissessar decided to remove him and bring in Steve James Bond Williams. This is the same thing that I was doing, getting the police officers out onto the streets, getting them to be doing patrols, high visibility, not having 10 and 12 police officers in a building. When you go to Miami, New York, London, how many police stations do you see? We still believe that every time somebody steals someone, Mango, you need to set up a police station or a police post somewhere. That is not how it works. So high visibility, getting police officers out onto the streets, that is what is important. Providing the equipment, the technology, that is what is required. And this could all be done without a state of emergency. It just requires the political will and persons in the hierarchy of the police service with some degree of tactical and strategic ability to understand law enforcement. What we have now is many administrators in the police service who do not understand that tactical system to operate the police service.
Yeah, I want to deal with some of the numbers here. So 126 suspects, 17 firearms, and over 675 rounds of assorted ammunition. Mr. Griffith, the data will show that in the past, and again, you know very well as former police commissioner, that in some cases, sometimes in one incident, in one arrest, you see the seizure of 675 rounds of assorted ammunition. What we have seen over the years, Trinidad and Tobago, and more Trinidad, looks to be awash with firearms and more so high-powered weapons. We have seen in recent times, and blogger, Christmas List, he would have gone into communities and you're seeing men walking around with these big weapons, some of them, in some cases, 3-4 weapons you're seeing in these videos. So when you speak about 17 firearms and over 675 rounds of assorted ammunition, I'm just looking at how successful this exercise has been thus far in relation to the firearms and the ammunition.
Listen, if you have a state of emergency and it has saved one life, you have acquired one extra firearm, that is success. The kick-in will always be, as I said, the negative impact. If half of the tourists decide not to come to Trinidad and Tobago because they hear SOE, if it is that it's going to affect our economy, affect investment, that's something else. So we are seeing something that can be of value. And it is something that obviously should be welcomed. But you're speaking about, it's a drop in the bucket, but it is a start. And you're speaking about over 10,000 illegal firearms based on the SSA's report, plus that are out there. You see 10, but then again, 100 coming through our legitimate ports of entry tomorrow. You're spinning top in mud. So as much as we are trying our best to try to, the police now trying to seize illegal firearms that are already here, we need to plug that gap of what is causing the entry of the illegal weapons. When I met with the US, they confirmed that over 95% of these illegal weapons come through the legitimate ports of entry. So when we speak about all this nonsense about OPVs, and it's not somebody coming in with a payroll bringing in these weapons. They're coming in through our ports from especially North America. That is why I did the draft for that border protection unit, having representatives from the police, the army, the customs, the coast guard, immigration, private security, undercover officers in the port, dealing with it specifically. We lose 7 containers a year, which means that if we seize 500 weapons every year, in what we have done in 5 years, it could come back in one night through a container leaving because of the questionable rogue element in customs, immigration, the port security, the driver, all getting out. When you could misplace containers, that is a serious problem. We have so many things available. We have mobile scanners that we are not using. We have the equipment and technology to assist us. And I think so, rather than, it is all well and good to see we see 17 firearms, but if it is, as I said, last night 100 entered through our legal ports, it's not going to solve the problem. The problem must be solved by plugging that hole of the illegal entry of illegal firearms through our legitimate ports of entry.
Yeah, but while as police commissioner, I'm sure that you would have expressed concern about this data that you're providing us with here this morning. You felt that there was the will, and more so the political will, to deal with this flow of illegal weapons through our legal ports of entry?
Yeah, many times you hear politicians, and that's probably why I'll probably always be a patriot more than a politician. The things I say might not help me politically. But working with the outgoing Prime Minister, he had a genuine concern. He had a genuine concern to deal with the problem of illegal weapons in Trinidad and Tobago. I worked closely with the then Minister of National Security to be now the anointed Prime Minister, Stuart Young. And there was a lot that we were trying to do to deal with the problem. The main thing I kept telling them is you need to form that border protection unit. That was done just about 5 months before my departure. If that was done, I think that would have played a very big part towards plugging the gap. And again, I got this based on advice from our international experts. You need a border protection unit. You can't be using one customs officer that night and hope that he's not going to be a rogue element. It doesn't work that way. Every single arm of the protective service, you're going to have rogue elements. You bring all of them together, you have guards watching the guards. That is the problem. So I don't think that there are politicians who actually have a deliberate desire for crime to be successful, other than politicians who have gone out of their way to give gang members state contracts, such as building police stations. And I will deal with that later on as the campaign goes on, because that's what some political leaders upset when I bad talk that their friend in their party. That is my biggest problem. When we have politicians who have gone out of their way, aiding and abetting and supporting gang activity indirectly by giving them a $10 million state contract to build a $1 million box train. They use the profit to purchase more weapons, more drugs, hire more gang members, pay off rogue elements in the police service and the criminal justice system, and it's a domino effect. Those are the politicians that I fear. There are other politicians who may just be incompetent, but I think there's a genuine desire by politicians on both sides to deal with the problem.
You, as police commissioner, you were very outspoken when it came to these contracts being given to alleged criminals. Did you see at all during your time as police commissioner where these contracts would have slowed or would have stopped?
Well, I was very mischievous. I was very vocal. In fact, that was one of the clashes I had with the outgoing Prime Minister when I said that gangs must not be getting state contracts. We had a tit for tat. He made a public statement and he said, well, if persons are not charged and they are not criminals, well, there's nothing stopping them from applying. And then in return, I said, okay, that is the way you want to go. In the United States, there are hundreds of persons who are on a terrorist watch list. They have not arrested them or charged them, but they're not going to give them a state contract to paint the White House. So the point being is that if you know who these people are based on intelligence, you're not going to be giving them massive profits they know what they're going to do. They're going to be able to purchase more sophisticated, illegal, automatic firearms to challenge the same law enforcement officers that you're not providing the resources for in the first place. So that has always been a big issue. And as I said, we have, when I was commissioner, I made it known that we must not, when you play with filthy animals, you will get fleas. There were a number of things, but it just started from live sport, Color Me Orange, Hoop of Life, ERP, CPEP. It has been going on for decades in this country. It started when a Prime Minister decided to refer to gangs as community leaders. That is what has caused the problem. It's not because Basio Pandey and Joe Theodore had a murder rate of less than 100 because they were just brilliant. Yes, they were good prime ministers, a good prime minister and security minister. But when you start giving the community leaders, turn them into community leaders, give them massive state contracts, the profit they use have never been the Robin Hoods of their community that help the community. It has been to foster more gangs, build more gangs, pay them more, put hits on other persons, turn young people's lives from being a hard-working young person into a criminal. It has caused deaths, it has caused mayhem. And the politicians have a big part to play in it because they believe that, let me work with them, they will help me get votes in my campaign, but there's going to be a price to pay. I continue to stand firm that I am not going to affiliate myself with any political party that sees it fit to work with gangs and to give them state contracts.
Mr. Griffith, I want to raise an issue here. some people may feel that it is a very funny issue, but it has been something in the public domain for a number of years now. In fact, Prime Minister Patrick Manning would have spoken about this, the big fish. And in recent days, the police commissioner has spoken about that. We are hopeful that we will get all the big fish. In speaking with reporters on the weekend, and she was being questioned about these 126 people who have been arrested during this SOE. And she says, asked yesterday if the 126 were big fish or little fish. The police commissioner said, we have a mix. It's day 7, but it is still early, and we are hopeful that we will get all the big fish. Mr. Griffith, I want you once and for all to speak about this claim of big fish in Trinidad and Tobago. Is it fact or fiction?
Okay, so I'm speaking as someone who was a national security advisor from 2010 to 2013, security minister from 2013 to 2015, and a police commissioner for 3 years after that. Let me be clear. What Patrick Manning said, what Ula Christopher said, is total nonsense. Total nonsense. But you know, everybody in Trinidad and Tobago is, because everybody is a superstar. Everybody is somebody who is so well versed in law enforcement. Yes, of course, there's big fish. There was a man who was actually a professor, a lecturer in UE, that made a very foolish statement and accused the Syrian Lebanese community and said they are the ones that are instrumental in all the drugs. He was thrown out of UE. And the media in return said, because of that, we are going to call you every single day to get your views about national security. And every comment he makes, if West Indies lose a test match, he's going to speak about the Mexican drug cartel, because that's all he knows about law enforcement. So that is what has happened in Trinidad and Tobago. We love the old talk. We love the rum shop talk. We love the gossip. Patrick Manning made a comment on that, and there has been absolutely no evidence whatsoever of the so-called big fish. And again, what I'm saying to the public will say, well, you see, well, the police are failures. Where do you get this big fish from? What happens for law enforcement? You go after the little fish, the guppies. And then when you get those individuals, through plea bargaining, then you start moving forward. So you go after the low-hanging fruit. When you hear a police commissioner make a foolish statement, we are going after the big fish. If you know this fish was so big, why have we apprehended this individual? There's no name, there's nothing. There's a lot of rumor, there's a lot of intelligence. That cannot do anything unless you get proper evidence to verify that this person is involved in serious money laundering, white-collar crime, major criminal activity. What I can't state emphatically as it pertains to violent crime, the big fish are the gang leaders. These gang leaders work for no one. So the vast majority of the murders that take place have nothing to do with any big fish. It has to do with the gang leaders who put hits on other gang members or others to get their state contracts and so forth. That is the big fish, the gang leaders. As it pertains to white-collar crime, it is very possible there are persons who are involved in massive money laundering, which is why I drafted that cabinet note as a security minister known as civil asset forfeiture, where I realized we could not find this big fish. So what we do, if we can't find you, I worked with the FBI, the DEA, and so forth, and said, if you can't account for how you have these 5 houses, these 6 boats, these 9 cars, all of this account, then we can seize it from you. That was civil asset forfeiture. As soon as I dropped that cabinet note, they canceled cabinet for the day. They said I have to be mad. People said they work hard for their money. I said, well, if you work hard for your money, you will justify it. Faris Alwari then piggybacked on my civil asset forfeiture when they got into government, and he changed the name to Explain Your Wealth. So he took credit for it. But that is how it is you deal with finding big fish. Civil asset forfeiture, Explain Your Wealth, if you can't account for it. But let me be clear, from Patrick Manning to 15, 17 years later to Ula Christopher, this nonsense with big fish, we can't, our focus, you can't even catch a guppy, but you're going after big fish. Get the persons who we know have broken the law, you target them, and then through plea bargaining, then you could go after persons at a higher echelon. Yeah.
Mr. Griffith, I just have a few minutes again, but I do want to get your perspective on what has been happening in the politics. Of course, you referred to it a short while ago during our discussion, but It is a situation now where the Prime Minister intends to leave office before the end of March, and also Stuart Young being named as the person who is going to replace him. Of course, you would have worked closely as Police Commissioner with both individuals. How do you see what has been, I think, a bombshell in politics that has occurred over the past few days?
Well, I wish Minister Young well. Again, knowing the PNM as well as I do, just as I know the UNC as well as I do, that there's going to be, I believe there's going to be internal civil war. This is not going to end nicely at all. The 11-9 alone speaks for itself. What is of credit to the PNM is that you have 11-9, but the person who's now going to be Prime Minister is not going to say, well, the 9 of you all didn't vote for me and support me, so I'm going to fire you. So it is hoped that other political parties take a page out of that book, because you can identify it to another political party. I'm not going to call the name of the UNC. I'm not here to do that today. But when you look at 14-5, the Prime Minister says, the leader of that party says, oh, you didn't support me, so that 5 you must go. Notice the difference with the PNM. They have 11-9, which meant that 9 people oppose the political leader. Is it that the 9 people are going to be removed? That says a lot about democracy. And I'm the last person here to blow any trumpet for the PNM, because I think they have been a catastrophe. They should be removed from office, but we are not. My job is not to remove a government. My job is to ensure good governance. So I do believe that there's going to be a lot of internal civil war. I personally do not believe that he is going to remain as the heir apparent or the political leader going into the next election for the PNM. But that is the PNM's business. I'm going to drink water and mind my business and focus on that bridge constituency to ensure that they will never be used as they were used in 2010 to 2015.
Yeah, Gary Griffith, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. And of course, we are going to be speaking more this year. It's an election year. But in the meantime, take care and thanks again.
All the best.
All right, we are going to